Almost every single nurse out there probably has felt at one point or another that healthcare is broken and something needs to change. Something needs to be different.
Nurse coaching is that thing. It is the most promising avenue out of this unsustainable system that we find ourselves in right now. It is hope for betterment now and in the very near future.
Welcome, nurses and nurse coaches. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Nurse Coach Collective.
Yes.
I'm Heather Lapides.
I'm Peter Giza. We are registered nurses, board-certified nurse coaches, and co-founders of the Nurse Coach Collective.
Woo!
Heck yeah, Heather. Welcome, episode 1, me and you. Something that we've been wanting to do for a long time.
Years in the making.
Years in the making. Yeah, I'm so grateful to have the opportunity and the space to finally be able to sit down and to sit with you and to discuss nurse coaching in this manner, because we've been busy building one of the coolest continuing education programs.
One of the coolest.
The coolest continuing education program on the planet for nurses wanting to become board certified nurse coaches, really forwarding this movement. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to sit down, have more candid discussions with you, be a little bit more real. I think we should start by talking about maybe who this podcast is for.
Let's do it. Yes. This podcast is really for every single nurse out there. If I could be honest,
You can be honest.
If this could reach every single nurse out there, nothing in the world would make me happier. Because really, I think almost every single nurse out there probably has felt at one point or another that healthcare is broken and something needs to change. Something needs to be different. We can be doing better as a population. We can be doing better as a profession. And what you and I know from experience, because we have lived this ourselves, is that sometimes when you are in nursing and you have these feelings and you are wanting something to be different and you are craving something more, it can feel really lonely. And it can feel really confusing when you don't know what's even possible, right? When you want something different, but you don't know what that different thing is. So this podcast is for any nurse out there who is craving a switch, to move away from the sick care model and to move into one that promotes wellness and lasting lifestyle change, for nurses who want to be happier and healthier and more fulfilled in their careers. This is going to be a place for you to come, to get inspired, to feel connected, and to learn all about what nurse coaching is.
100%. Yep. So it's for all of those nurses, and this is for our nurse coaches, for any nurse coach out there. What's up?
That's right.
Fellow
Hello, nurse coaches.
To really provide you with, continued learning from me, from Heather, from all of the amazing nurse coaches in our world. We'll be having discussions with them. We'll be giving you tools, tips, techniques to forward and advance your practice as a nurse coach in whatever way that looks like for you. Because, we get emails every single day. Maybe not every single day. That's a stretch.
Almost every single
day, though. That where our graduates, nurse coaches, are telling us about all of this amazing stuff that we're up to. And we were joking of like it's me and you who sees that 99% of the time. And
yeah, I get an email, I come running down the stairs and I'm like, Peter, look what this
holy smokes, look at this person. Yeah, it's crazy. And so we want to be able to share all of that with y'all for, continued inspiration.
Yes.
Because we only know what we know sometimes. And if we're not exposed to all of the amazing things that is possible for us inside of nurse coaching, then we don't really get that opportunity to be like, maybe I could do that too.
Yeah. Exactly. And so to our fellow nurse coaches, we have heard you when you have been asking us for years now to put something like this together, have a space where we can come, where we can continue to motivate and inspire each other. And finally, we're pulling it off.
Yes. So this is for all nurses, for nurse coaches, and I think this is also for us.
Yes.
I think a lot of times when we're working inside of a continuing education world, we got to be a bit more formal,
yeah, we
stay in the box. So this is our opportunity to jam, to have fun, sit down, like I said, go off script, meander a little bit at times. We'll try to keep it relatively focused.
I think what most people know about us is that we are passionate about nurse coaching, that we love this work and spreading this movement, that we are pretty smart, great at teaching other nurses to be awesome and professional in this field. But what maybe some of our nurses and nurse coaches do not know is how awesome we are. We are fun. We are funny. We don't always get an opportunity to show that because we don't always get to show up, relaxed and sipping tea and wearing our big comfy sweaters and hanging out together. So cheers. I hope that this is as much fun for you as it is for me. I hope it is fun for our audience as I know it's going to be for us. And so really welcome, and thank you for joining us. On our first episode.
So let's shift gears and briefly talk about what is the Nurse Coach Collective.
What is the Nurse Coach Collective?
So we talked about who this podcast is for, but the Nurse Coach Collective is really the best training for nurses who are wanting to become board certified nurse coaches, for nurses who are interested in taking that mind, body, spirit approach to health and healing, for nurses who are wanting to help their patients to prevent, treat, and reverse lifestyle diseases, and to really master the art and science of nurse coaching, from helping to take their clients from where they are to where they want to be, being able to coach them across that gap. Because, so often providers, we know what our patients should be doing. We know that people should be eating better, sleeping more, exercising more. We talk about it all the time, but it's so much different. We can tell somebody what they should be doing, but helping somebody to actually do it can be challenging.
Very different thing.
It's a completely different thing. And so the Nurse Coach Collective is that learning, is that place to really hone in on and embody that skill set of being able to move beyond the shoulds and the coulds and just the pamphlets and the after visit summaries into true holistic healing for our patients, lifestyle transformations for them, and understanding how to help someone break through resistance, to build more confidence, to what else? What else do we help our nurse coaches do?
To break through resistance, to build more confidence, to connect with their deeper levels of motivation, to know not only how to set goals, but how to be successful in reaching their goals. And Peter, you caught me smiling at you as you were talking there. And it's because you're talking so fast and you're getting so excited. And it reminds me, like, sometimes we need to take a deep breath,
slow down,
and
speed
slow
up.
down. Because I think when we talk about what is the Nurse Coach Collective, it can be almost a challenge to define because it is so many things. And so what you're talking about is that at its core, the Nurse Coach Collective is this training program for nurses to become board certified nurse coaches, to learn to become amazing and highly confident in the art and science of what it means to be a nurse coach. And at the same time, the Nurse Coach Collective is also so much more than that. The Nurse Coach Collective is a community of what we consider to be the most innovative and forward-thinking nurses on the planet. Don't you always feel that way when we are hanging out with our people and hanging out with our fellow nurse coaches?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so, the Nurse Coach Collective is, some might say, a collective.
Which is funny because, like, way back when we were choosing the name for the company and we chose the word collective, I think we were driving down a street in Portland and we saw it on a building and we're like, ooh, that sounds nice. And it looks really nice spelled out. But there was also some foreshadowing to what this community was really going to become, because it is a collective. I've never, ever been a part of a community inside of nursing that is so collaborative and so supportive, right? There's no dog-eat-dog world like there is in so many areas of nursing.
Remarkable.
There is no competition. It's everyone here showing up to help our fellow nurses become the best that they can be, the healthiest, the happiest, the most fulfilled, create the most amazing practice that they are dreaming of, and really do that alongside each other so we can continue to motivate and inspire each other.
Awesome. So that's the Nurse Coach Collective. Did we miss anything there? Awesome learning. I think what we didn't say is we also host conferences. We have other awesome courses in there, but we can talk about that later. It's an amazing community. It's a collective. Anything else that we missed there?
Oh, there's something else.
What's it?
Something bigger. Think bigger. Think bigger than the course. Think bigger than the community.
Tell me.
It's the movement. This is your favorite topic to talk about. Tell me about the movement.
Yeah, and I think it is, I don't think it is, I know it is. It's this grassroots movement towards systemic change. And we have these sayings, one nurse, one patient, one conversation at a time, we're transforming the whole thing, because it doesn't matter if you completely love your job or if you are so fed up and burnt out with the model that you're ready to leave nursing altogether. Every single nurse in our profession knows that something needs to be different. And right now, we truly believe that nurse coaching is that thing. It is the most promising avenue out of this wild, unsustainable system that we find ourselves in right now. And so I think in a lot of ways, it is hope. Yeah. It's hope. It is hope for betterment now, and hope for like what's possible in the very near future. I mean, over the past few years, like in 5 years, we have gone from 0 to training more nurse coaches than anyone else on the planet. We've gone from 0 to now thousands of graduates out there putting in the work. Like, we've infiltrated literally every single part of the medical system, from bedside all the way up, all around. And so I think it is this like growing movement towards systemic change. And I got super passionate about it. I love it so much because it's inspiring. And I think a lot of times when we're in nursing, and if we don't know that there's a different avenue, we can get despair. We can start to be like, oh man, is this all there is? Like,
disheartened,
really
or burnt
disheartened
out, or
and burnt
jaded,
out,
or anything.
I just don't think it has to be like that. And I think there absolutely has to be a better model. And I think nurse coaching is right now the best opportunity that we have to transform healthcare from the inside out. So I would say that's Nurse Coach Collective in a nutshell.
I would say that's a pretty good start. We'll have many episodes to dive deeper, I think, really into all of those areas. But yeah, so that is the Nurse Coach Collective. And maybe the missing piece, if we could possibly say it succinctly, is like, what is nurse coaching? So to our nurses who are new to this field, and maybe this is the first time that you are ever hearing about nurse coaching as a possibility inside of this profession, as a field that you can enter into, how would you describe in the briefest way?
The briefest way.
The briefest way.
Go.
This is your box I'm putting you in, your rules to follow. How would you describe nurse coaching? And let's add on to what you already said, which was, right, that a big part of our work is helping our clients go from where they are and looking at a current assessment of their health, their happiness, their overall well-being, and helping them create and envision this idea of where it is that they want to go, so that they can dream on what it is to be fully healthy on their own terms, to live fully well. And then there's that coaching gap that we coach them through. So what is, aside from that, or building on that, what does it mean to be a nurse coach?
Nurse coaching is, at its core, an emerging specialty inside of our field. So a nurse coach is a registered nurse who's achieved additional training in the art and science of health and wellness coaching. And, you know, we all, there's so many different specialties inside of our fields. And nurse coaching is the one that really helps our patients do exactly what you said, which is take them from where they are. It doesn't matter where they are in their health and happiness, help them envision where they want to be, and then we coach them through that gap. And so we use all different tools and techniques. We use our understanding of holistic healing. We take that mind, body, spirit approach to health and healing. And so it takes that lifestyle-centric approach. And I think that's really important, because when we look at what is happening inside of our population right now, I mean, hundreds of millions of people are suffering because of chronic, preventable, and reversible diseases. And so nurse coaching is that opportunity for us to prevent, treat, and reverse up to 80% of chronic disease.
Yes. And you mentioned the mind, body, spirit, holistic approach. And now you're touching on the lifestyle component, which I think is so important, because that's what a lot of nurses got into the field wanting to do, was to actually be able to, instead of treating disease, managing symptoms, pushing pills, slapping these temporary band-aids on problems that need real solutions. What we wanted to do was actually help people, was actually connect with our patients, to feel confident that we were making a lasting difference and having an impact on their lives, and to be able to work with them on these aspects of lifestyle, right? Nutrition and exercise and movement, and getting more holistic rest, building healthier relationships, right? Avoiding risky substances, slowing down through mindfulness to reduce stress, all of these things that seem like common sense, but they are in no way, shape, or form common practice. They're not common practice for the majority of our population, and they're also not common practice for us nurses. So what is so cool about nurse coaching is that you get all of the tools and the skills and the techniques to know not just the knowledge of all of those different components of lifestyle and the science of human change, but you also get the ability to coach someone to be able to create changes in all of those areas of their life. And then I think the added bonus of it all is that you not only get to serve and support your patients or your clients, depending on where you work, you also get to learn how to take all of those things we're talking about and turn them around and hold up that mirror and implement them into your own life. Yeah. Because what do we know about nurses? We are like notorious for taking care of other people, but we always fall short when it comes to taking care of ourselves. And so the nurse coaching model really flips that script, and it invites us to prioritize ourselves alongside our clients so that we are building ourselves up and cultivating our own health and wellness so that we can give from a cup that's overflowing instead of one that's empty. That's the way it should be, but that's new in nursing. That's not the norm. But we get to be bringing this new model to the forefront, which I think is so exciting.
Yep. So I would say, really, in a lot of ways, it's a paradigm shift. It's a shift from focusing 100% on modern medicine, and which is amazing, right? If you are in a state of acute illness or trauma, that's exactly where you want to be. But when you over-rely on it too much, then you end up in this state where we have so much chronic disease, where we have so much provider burnout. And so it is really bringing balance. And, instead of, it's not 100% reliance on alternative integrated modalities, but it's bringing together the best of all worlds to create this new paradigm shift where we can really empower our patients to change their lifestyle and to become better. And also for us nurses to really step up our game as healers and to be the change that we want to see.
And to do all of that while getting a nationally accredited, magnet recognized board certification in nurse coaching so that you can do all of this under your nursing license.
Yep. And I think that's something super important to point out. We'll talk more about the board certification in a future episode, but literally no other licensed profession on the planet has a board certification in coaching, in health and wellness coaching. It's absolutely awesome. So
nicely done, nursing.
Nicely done, nursing. And shout out to all the nursing leaders who, and the theorists, nurse coach theorists who made that work happen back in the day, about 15 years ago now. It's absolutely awesome. And I'm so grateful.
Amazing. Well, I would say at this point, you and I are somewhat of experts in the field of nurse coaching, right? We have been pouring our hearts and souls into this work. We have taught thousands of nurses to become nurse coaches, but we have not always known about nurse coaching. Yeah. And so I think that would be a fun thing to talk about is like, walk me back to where you were 7-8 years ago before you ever heard about nurse coaching. How were you feeling? What were you doing? And how did your journey unfold?
Yes. And good to point out, because I think sometimes it's easy to be, just here. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of nurse coaches coming into this field or, can look at that and be like, oh, just gotten here in a flash. But it's been 6-7 years, really, really hard work and personal and professional transformation. But yeah, when I became a nurse, I've been around this work my whole life. Right? My mom was a nurse, so I was always going to staff meetings with her. I went to nursing school straight out of college because I knew that was the work. This was the work that I was going to do. And, when I was younger, working in the ER was awesome. It was super, super fun. I remember just having a great time being in the trauma, being in the quick of it, being in the hustle. And at some point, I was like, okay, I'm ready for something different. Mm-hmm. So I started popping around. To different ERs and where I grew up on the East Coast. And at some point, I was like, all right, let's go check out the West Coast, see if anything's different out there. And when I got out to the West Coast and started practicing nursing in ERs out there, I suddenly realized oh, this is crazy. I'm 4,000 miles away from where I just was and nothing's really different. You know, yeah, people move a little bit differently. Maybe when I tell a doctor, like, hey, there's an emergency, and he's like, oh, it's cool, man. Like, I'll get to it in a minute. I'm like,
to
you
the
sure?
West Coast.
You sure? Those West Coast docs got a little bit more chill in them sometimes. Yeah, it was interesting, like to see that, like even 4,000 miles away, like nursing is still practiced in the same way. Like the model of healthcare isn't that substantially different. And at some point I was like, okay, well, I've kind of got what I need out of ER nursing. The goal was always to go back to school for anesthesia. You know, I remember when I was knowing a lot of nurses growing up, they're always like, yeah, go to anesthesia. Like that's where the money's at. And I was like, all right, got to go back to school for anesthesia. That's where the money's at. But when I transitioned to CVICU, I so quickly realized, I was like, no way. Like there's no chance that I'm going to go spend the next 3 years of my life in school, spend $50,000 to $100,000 on this education, spend another 3 years doing something because I didn't like it. You know, I wasn't into that work. But I was still there in the CVICU, and I remember it's like 2 a.m. and things get a little strange at 2 a.m. when I was probably on my third or fourth night shift, and I remember sitting there and I looked up, and yeah, it's odd when you're a little sleep deprived, but you suddenly start to see things differently. And I had been recovering this open heart patient who had just got surgery that day, and it seemed like that first moment of insight of realizing like this seems strange, like this whole situation seems off. Like here's this person who could have been prevented from needing this really intense open heart surgery, and like I didn't know it at the time. Like I'm not going to say like, oh, I know now that most heart disease can be prevented and reversed through lifestyle coaching, but it was that moment of wake up for me of, man, I just don't really want to be doing this in this way anymore. I started to think like maybe there has to be something different. And so I think that was the switch where I started searching for something to be different. You know, what else can I do as a nurse that's not nurse anesthesia, that's not nurse practitioner? Because I think those things are awesome. And I love continuing education. I love advancing our practice as nurses, but I just didn't feel like that traditional path was for me. And my dad's always said, like, oh, Peter, he beats to the beat of his own drum, you know, like hilarious. But that's kind of how I've always been, you know, like I've always like chosen to go different pathways. And we started searching, and like when I found nurse coaching, it was different. And it, like, I didn't completely understand it, but I do remember coming to you and being like, yo, we got to go do this thing. Like, I got to go do this thing. There's like a training starting in a couple weeks. I had no idea what it was. But I just knew that it was different than what I was wanting to pursue. So yeah, I think for me, how I got into this work was just a desire for something different inside of my nursing career. And finding nurse coaching was like the catalyst for so many personal and professional transformations that I can't even really count on. Thank goodness for night shifts.
For those quiet moments of desperation in the night and those few moments of downtime for crazy internet searches. Yeah, I mean, I remember that. I remember how you were feeling at the time and searching for your next thing. And we were both on our path of searching for what was going to be next. And then you coming home and having stumbled across nurse coaching and being so excited. And it was this new and wild thing that sounded, I mean, really almost too good to be true in a lot of ways. So it was exciting. And I think you really carried that excitement. And I was a little bit freaked out, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was like, whoa, what is this new and crazy thing? And this is like a little bit too different. And is this even real? But, yeah, I mean, I think you had that moment of insight that so many nurses have probably experienced in their own way of, we so often in our jobs, we go through the motions, right? We go through patient to patient, task to task, and we almost move a bit robotically. It becomes a bit numb. And then when you have that moment of insight of like looking around and seeing the reality of the situation, the reality of why your patients are there and what you could or could not be doing to truly help them in a more meaningful way, it is pretty mind blowing. It does kind of shake you up a bit inside, and it's hard to turn back from that moment.
Yeah. And that was kind of like how I got into nurse coaching. And I know, you know, when I came to you with that, you were in a little bit of a different state. So I guess briefly tell us, like, what brought you to finally saying yes to choosing to become a nurse coach? And
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we were on parallel journeys, but we were in different places. You know, you'd been a nurse for almost a decade at that point. You were really experienced, and I had only been a nurse for 3 years when I discovered nurse coaching. I was still felt pretty brand new in the ICU. But as crazy as this sounds, well, now I realize it's not crazy at all. It's actually incredibly common. But I was 3 years in to my ICU nursing role, and I was incredibly burnt out. I mean, I was so disheartened by what my day-to-day role actually looked like. I remember sitting in the car in the parking lot outside of the hospital, crying and just dreading going into work, waiting until that very last minute. There's like one more minute until I need to run in and clock in. And I started to look around at my fellow nurses to be like, okay, where's my hope? Where's my inspiration? What do I have to look forward to? Maybe this is just because I'm new. And I didn't get it. I didn't see it. I saw other nurses sort of building their camaraderie because they were commiserating together on how hard the role is and how stressed they were and how the best part of their day was clocking out and getting that paycheck. And it just didn't fit for me. You know, I really wanted to be helping people on that deeper level, but I wasn't able to do that. And so when you came and shared nurse coaching and you were so excited, it was like, you know, part of me wanted to just grasp onto that and be like, yes, something new, something different. Let's do this. But the other part of me was, I think, really afraid. I think I was really afraid to go out on a limb and do something new. And I think I felt like if I left the hospital, if I left the ICU and I'd only been doing this for 3 years, then was I even a real nurse? Or had I put in my time, or was I a failure because I worked so hard to get there and now I was just giving up and going a different path? And luckily, over time, I trusted my intuition and trusted that this could be a really cool thing. And what I've learned is, like, I've never, ever, ever felt like more of a nurse than I do now as a nurse coach.
Well said. Yeah, and that was an interesting time, but, you know, I think we just both decided to go all in.
Yeah.
You know, we took our training, we almost immediately fell in love with this work, and just being there, connecting deeply with our patients and finding just so much resonance in it that we took it and we ran with it, man. Like, we ran with it hard. You know, I think in our practicum, we worked with twice as many practice clients as we needed to. And then we really wanted to prove to ourselves that it was possible to build a private practice. So I think I took all that money I saved up for anesthesia school. You continued hustling in the hospital, to make sure that we could sustain ourselves as we built it. But we did it. You know, like we worked our butts off to be able to build that practice for ourselves and to really build this dream life. That sometimes we were like, is this real? Like, we get to work with these patients, our clients, in this way, to really serve and support them, and also to find so much meaning and purpose in our work. And, you know, as we did that and we started to share with other nurses like what we were doing, what did we hear? I mean, over and over again.
Every single nurse was like, that sounds amazing. You know, tell me how you're doing this. That's what I want to do. That's why I became a nurse in the first place. And I think, you know, you can hear that from a couple of nurses, but when you start to hear that from hundreds and hundreds of nurses telling you, like, this is what I want to be doing, this is why I became a nurse, I think that was our next huge moment of insight, of realizing, like, okay, this is not about Heather and Peter finding a better way to practice nursing and a job or private practice that was more fulfilling for us. It was about so much more than just the two of us, right? It was about all nurses being able to explore this field and all nurses being able to step into their power as nurses and really create a practice and a life and a lifestyle that is fulfilling for them and that really works to promote health and healing for their patients and for themselves.
And so we built the Nurse Coach Collective, you know, and I think we're skipping over like a lot of parts.
We're skipping over
the fumblings and this, you know, the trying to build this stuff. And I think we can talk about that far more deeply at a later time.
Yes, you have to promise that you're going to interview me like on a very deep level.
I got you.
To tell the ins and outs of my story, because I do think, like there are some parts that I have been really shy and private about not sharing publicly. And it's vulnerable. And it's part of, the real bottom level that I reached when it came to my own health and wellness as a nurse. I mean, it just completely fell to the wayside. I did not take care of myself, and the toll that took on me and my life and on us and our relationship. And we won't get into it today on our first episode, but I do really want to promise to our community that is something that I will share, because I know I'm not alone in having gone through that.
Hell yeah. I promise you will get that. You'll be able to tell your story in
Give me
full.
my time on the mic.
And so we built it. We built a Nurse Coach Collective. We fumbled a lot. We tried to figure it out, but we just read everything that we could about it. We practiced, and when we built this program,
you all have no idea how many books Peter read.
Ooh, I read a lot of books.
Yeah, the library. You are an actual library.
Because it turns out you can give yourself a master's degree for just the cost of books, man. That was crazy.
Or just the library card.
Yeah. It was awesome. So I had so much fun, learning all that. And then we put together the Nurse Coach Collective, and, shout out to first couple of collectives, the first couple nurses who trusted us back then, as we kind of figured this whole thing out. And it's evolved over these past 5 years to become something that is this incredible, repeatable process for nurses to become world-class board certified nurse coaches. And, over and over again, we see just these amazing, amazing results. And I love the work that we get to do, but also recognizing that we're in like a completely different place here and now. And I think that's part of why I wanted to build this podcast and to start having these discussions, because I feel like we've evolved so much. I feel like the field of nurse coaching and Nurse Coach Collective has evolved so much. And so I think it's important to take stock of where we were, and also to really look at where we are now.
Yeah, well, where we were was being nurses desperate for something different, and where we are is running one of the coolest and most fun and most effective training programs out there for nurses. I mean, we are actually have something huge to celebrate, which is that we have officially trained more nurses to become nurse coaches than anyone else on the planet. That's insane in 5 years. And to have the feedback that we've had from our students, to know how much the journey has meant for them. We hear words and phrases like transformative and life-changing and rejuvenating and inspiring. And that is how I want our nurses to feel. So the fact that we've been able to accomplish that and achieve that again and again and again,
let's go.
Wow. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. But also we're just getting started, right? We are just getting started.
100%. Awesome. I'd say it's a good start. It's a good start for episode 1. Covered a lot of ground. Covered who it's for, who we are, who the Nurse Coach Collective is, a little bit of our origin story. On the next couple of episodes, what are we going to be covering?
I think what you have to know about nurse coaching is why this is so important. Like why nurse coaching truly needs to exist in this moment, and why, as you've been alluding to, now is the time, right? Now is when we are starting to see the exponential growth in not only the number of nurse coaches that there are, but the number of vast opportunities that are continually being presented for nurse coaches. And because when you understand that, that's when you start to understand the huge, enormous impact that nurse coaches as a collective are able to have on the world. So next time, we're going to talk about that, why nurse coaching matters, how it is literally transforming and revolutionizing healthcare, and why it's so cool to be a part of that.
Love it. Well, Heather, good job here today.
Good job, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you. I respond well to positive feedback. Nurses, nurse coaches, thanks so much for joining us here in episode 1 with the Nurse Coach Collective. We're super, super excited to be able to go on this journey with you over the next many months, years, decades.
Who knows?
Who knows what's coming next? And we will see you in the next episode.
All right. Nice work.